Welcome to the Tiffany Micah podcast. What we do here is build the strength and courage in you to accomplish your big dreams and goals in your sport. No longer will you feel limited. You won't feel you're not good enough. You won't question whether you will make it. Those doubts will disappear because you will have the competitive edge over your opponents and leave them in your wake. And the bonus is others will notice. Listen up and take notes because I will show you exactly how to do it. Hey there, Tiff here. Welcome to the Tiffany Micah podcast. It's great to have you back once again. And if you're new, welcome. It's a pleasure to have you here. So what we're going to be looking at today is this thing around these good mistakes. And have you ever heard of that being said that mistakes are good mistakes? And I hadn't really heard of that prior. Probably the last 10 years I've been obviously a lot more aware of it and so on. But the question is like, well, how can mistakes be good mistakes? Because if you think about it, in school we're taught that mistakes are bad and you're either right or you're wrong. Like it's pretty much black and white. In sport, it's the same. You either win or you lose. In business, it's the same. You either succeed or you fail, right? It's very black and white. However, if we're brought up thinking that mistakes are bad, mistakes are wrong, mistakes are a failure, then what's going to paralyze us? And it becomes that fear of making a mistake. And if you think about it, when you are performing or competing, even practicing in your sport, when you stop and think about what you're actually about to do, or you have those doubts that creep in, whether you can actually execute the skill or create or execute that pattern of play that you're about to perform, you will make a mistake. I want you to think of it this way. It's really, all you're doing is you're focusing your attention on something in that moment, right? So if you are focusing on the fear of making a mistake, because that's what we're taught mistakes are bad. So if you're focusing on that fear of making a mistake, then what do you think will happen? You bet, you are so right. A mistake is going to happen, isn't it? So here are a couple of examples. When I was learning to play golf, I was, in this process, I think I was down to about a 10 handicap by this time and had been really working steadily on, not letting the tennis demons come back and really working on, all the things that I missed out from a tennis point of view. I was able to adapt them and put them into golf and work on them and so on. So I had this incident where I was standing on the 10th tee at this particular golf course where I used to play at and practice at. And it was a par 5 hole. It was a dog leg which went down to the left. And on the left-hand side of that whole fairway was a dam. And what happened was that I stood on the tee. I was playing really well. I was actually playing at a tournament in that day. And I was playing really well, and I stood on the 10th tee and I said, Tiff, don't hit it in the water. And I said, Tiff, you don't think like that, because you know what happens when you think like don't hit it in the water? Your head's going to pick up like hit it in the water. So don't say don't hit it in the water, just focus on hitting it down the fairway. And I had this argument with myself when I was standing over the ball going, well, don't hit it in the water. No, don't talk like that, Tiff, down the fairway. No, don't hit it in the water. Guess which one won? You betcha. It went into the water, right? So I hit the ball, pulled it left, straight into the dam. And I went, see, I told you. I told you that would happen, because where was really my focus? As much as I was trying to get my focus back on playing the ball down the center of the fairway, what was really pulling me was the water. So what was I focusing on? The water. What happened? A mistake happened, right? Same thing as like in golf and in any other sport. So golf, another example is like, especially early days. I know when I was learning to play golf, standing over the ball, and I was like, don't make a mistake, don't stuff it up. Well, what happened? I stuffed it up. I kept making mistakes with it. Because again, where was the focus? The focus was on the mistake, wasn't it? So the question then becomes, well, all right, Tiff, how is seeing mistakes as good? Or is there such a thing as good mistakes? And absolutely there is a thing and such a thing as good mistakes. And a lot of this will actually be highlighting to your attitude. Now, if you're a perfectionist, and by the way, nothing wrong with being a perfectionist, because I'm one of those as well, can blow up at yourself every time you make a mistake, especially when you're a perfectionist. Because there are mistakes aplenty all around, and the thing is that you're going to continue to do that time and time again, is keep blowing up at yourself because you've made another mistake. And if you don't know how to deal with mistakes, you're going to have an even more bumpier road ahead of you. Now, if you are not a perfectionist, then you're very much a rare breed in the athlete world, because I find that majority of athletes who are really shooting for big goals in their sport are shooting for perfection. And we know that if we shoot for perfection, we know that we can execute our skills perfectly, because if we execute our skills perfectly, we've got a much better chance of winning. But that better chance of winning is actually going to depend on what's going on in your head. And what we're going to do here is we're going to be focusing around what your attitude is like right now and in this situation. Because if you've been listening to me for a while now, you know that your sports performance will be dictated by what is going on in your head. It's not going to be your skills, even though you're going to blame your skills. Everything's always going to come back to what's going on into your head. That's where everything starts, from your head. So when I was coaching my niece's soccer team last year, you may have heard me talk about it a little bit last year, and I bring it up from time to time. And she was in a mixed team, but there was only the two girls and the rest were boys. And this used to give me the cold shivers down the spine every time. Was the manager of the team, lovely lady, great lady, was a fantastic manager for the team, organised everyone really well, very supportive in that sense. But every time that they got out of the car, and her son played in the team as well. Great, he's a great player. But every time they'd come out of the car, they'd talk about how they're going to be losing, how the team's going to lose. And that used to send real shivers down my spine. I thought, if you're walking into the sports arena of your sport, believing that you're going to lose, hello, that's what's going to happen. You're going to lose. Anyway, I could talk about this all day, but what I want you to be thinking about is focusing on what good mistakes are and how there can be good mistakes. And I want you to look at every mistake that you make, it's just feedback. And all that mistake has told you is what you have done that did not work in that moment. That's it. That's what you have done that did not work in that moment in time. And there's going to be a whole list of reasons why that, you didn't execute that shot well, or you missed the goal, or whatever. There's going to be reasons such as strong opponent, You mentally tuned out. You thought of something else. A random thought jumped into your head. You had this fear of making an error, poor timing, poor technique, poor movement, not in the correct position to execute. And I look back at times when I made mistakes, and if I had the attitude of, oh, okay, well, let's look at mistakes as feedback, because I wasn't taught that. I was taught that, mistakes are bad. If I was looking at everything in the past, like in those tennis days, looking at mistakes as feedback, rather than looking that it was a failure, then I can guarantee my tennis career would have ended up very differently. So there's this saying, what you focus on expands. So if you're focusing on what could go wrong, then yep, you're going to end up with a lot of disappointment, because everything will always go wrong. And then it'll be like, well, no wonder you're struggling, because that's what you're focusing on all the time. There are people out in the world, athletes, non-athletes, that focus on everything that could go wrong. And I'm not saying that that's a bad thing either. Like, focusing on some things that could go wrong is anticipating what could go wrong, right? And then having strategies in place to deal with that. But what I'm talking about here is where you are in that moment. Where's the focus on whether it's going to work or whether it's not going to work? So I want you to be thinking that mistakes are good, and all the mistakes it's just feedback. Because if you have that approach, then you are on your way to improvement. So what can you do from now on? Well, there's two things that I want you to do from now on. The first thing is I want you to learn from your mistakes. Mistakes are good because you'll get feedback on how to improve. That's the first one. Simple, isn't it? The second one, keep working on staying in the moment and doing the best you can in that moment. And I'm going to actually do an episode on that. That's going to be one that's going to be coming up actually in the next week or so, is we're going to be talking about what you can do to stay in the moment. Okay? So I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Love it if you could share with me what you like best about what you heard. And if you've got friends that that would benefit from these episodes, please share them. We want to build the successful athlete community as big as we possibly can. And before you go, have you got a copy of my book, Focus, How to Reach Your Potential in Sport, Business and Life? You can get it for free. I wrote it for you. It is lessons learned from sport, my experience on lessons learned, what you will need. It's an action-taking book. It's not something that you'll just read and put down and go, oh, thanks, Tiff, that was a nice read. I pose a lot of questions in it to help you move forward into the direction where you want to go in your life, because it's all about you reaching your potential. And this is going to push you to move forward and go after your sports dream. So I want you to dream big, believe in you, go after your dreams. Take care. Talk soon. Don't go anywhere. Just hang on. Don't go anywhere. Let's crush it when we compete. Come on. Have you signed up yet for the Successful Athlete Masterclass? We look at what's holding you back, what skills you will need to succeed, and how to accomplish your sports goals. Go to tiffanymica.com/Sam. Look forward to seeing you there. Dream big, believe in you, go after your dreams. Let's crush it when you compete.